Why do we need to be talking about money and Harry Styles, and what has it got to do with growing watermelons? So you've heard this crazy rumour that resenting the rich isn't going to pay your bills or give you your first deposit. Perhaps you heard it from me. Perhaps you heard it in episode 5 of my podcast, and you've heard that the government and your employer aren't going to bail you out in life. This means it's down to you to take control of your financial future. And you're like, Harry Styles, he seems like a nice guy, even though he's new money. If it's true that money doesn't make you evil, it just amplifies the person you already are. And he hasn't gone bankrupt either, so he's presumably doing something right to manage all that moolah. What's good about Harry? Is there something we should stop buying? And what can we learn about managing our own money if we're saving for a big goal, we want to buy our own house one day, or just be financially independent? Now, maybe you don't want to work in a bakery. Perhaps you can't sing or act. That's okay, because the entertainment industry is probably the least likely way that you're going to make your fortune just because of the odds involved. Today, let's cover some life lessons from Harry Styles that anyone can use to bring our goals closer regardless of what stage we're at in life. We're going to think rich and grow fruit, not just yet. P.S. How many song titles do you think I can include during the next 20 minutes and stay coherent? Let's find out, shall we? So the first life lesson from Harry Styles when it comes to money is that first-time buyers, and really any sweet creature on this planet, can diversify their income. But, because you've probably heard this tip before, let's be honest, but especially aim for income you have more control over. So instead of waiting for someone to pay you, protect yourself. Now, as an example, Harry apparently has his own music publishing company, his own record company. I think I tried to look this up once just from the point of view of trying to understand the music business. I came to the conclusion that just because I can belt a high C doesn't mean I understand sweet FA about the music business. So I left that for a future experiment. So I'm not sure if it's for purely fiscal or creative reasons or both. I think the idea is that you set up a record company and then you give exclusivity to a bigger international record company to actually distribute your stuff because they can afford it and you can't. And then by the time your contract with Goliath expires, your rights to the music revert to your own record company, by which point you've got your profits to do what you like with it. Anywho, the point is, there are definitely benefits to adding income streams to your life, whether it's starting a YouTube channel or something else information-based like a podcast or a blog, or it could be investing, it could be selling something you make, but adding income streams where you control the platform or some aspect of the distribution. So for instance, your own website versus hopping on social media. That also gives you a lot more control, because you can get banned or deleted by Instagram and have no idea why. Did you know that? They can just scrap your account. So if you were selling through Instagram, you could be selling on Monday and be gone by Tuesday. But you control your website, you control your podcast. So a friend asked what pay to ask for in a side hustle, so that might be coming up. Subscribe if you want to make sure you don't miss that. But ultimately, create multiple income streams. And if you're not sure where to focus because you're a big old moose who always wants more ideas, you keep looking for new ideas when you already have ideas. If you're a big old magpie who gets distracted by shiny things, focus on the streams you can control the most. Next tip, in case you hadn't noticed, this is a tips countdown. I'm counting down in reverse, so make sure you stick around for the big kahuna at the end. Invest in property, even if you can't afford a second home in Italy or wherever. If you're a first-time buyer, you're like, well, I'm investing in property anyway. And anyone else will be like, I can't invest in property. This is not a tip. Invest in yourself then in the meantime. So supposedly Harry owns a watermelon farm and he has a song called Watermelon Sugar. I'm sure the two aren't connected. Who knows? Perhaps he owns a cherry farm and a kiwi farm too. This is probably not true. I think if it was, or if it is, it's the Tim Ferriss principle of making your own poison, right? But I think it should be your own medicine. Not just because I said I try and fit in as many song titles as possible into this as possible for funsies. Did you catch them all, like Pokemon? So before people knew who Tim Ferriss was as author of the 4-Hour Workweek, I think the story goes that he started a supplements company because he was spending so much himself on sports supplements that he came to the conclusion he really needed to insource his biggest expense. Otherwise, it was going to break him. So there's 2 tips in one here. Invest in property if you can, and if you can't do that today, invest in yourself instead. So perhaps it's starting your own cottage industry so that you don't have to buy something you usually spend a lot anyway, or you buy it very regularly. I should probably start making sugar-free chocolate spread because eating that every day is close to bankrupting me. It's a similar principle too as buying stocks and shares in Apple when you own every product Apple bring out, right? Or buying a Tesla and then buying shares in Tesla, because if you're consuming something, you feel tied to the future progress of that company, and buying a share is a way of supporting them while supporting yourself, potentially. If you can't tell, I started investing in stocks and shares finally this year. It was a hard change, but change is possible, even if you're autistic. You just need support and structure. And the beauty of stocks and shares is that you can potentially just set and forget. The support came from other content creators, as it so happens, so I probably will do a video about that. I'd be completely remiss if I didn't say, drop me a line if you like a free share. Does anyone need a coffee break already? Let me sum up so far while you grab your coffee, or if you're well hydrated, perhaps you'll take this moment to drop me a comment instead. But what are you thinking? Inquiring minds want to know. But anyway, Harry was eating a lot of watermelon, so he bought a watermelon farm, as the story goes. I think this might all be a metaphor. But whether you like eating watermelon or not, you can still invest in property or yourself in the meantime. Don't forget to diversify your income. Glad we got that summed up. Next tip, once you have your property, renovate it instead of moving. So I heard that he's doing up an existing house instead of building a mega mansion. I'm not going to dwell on that because to verify that would have involved doing research I don't want to do. I don't want to know about where he lives, etc., because he doesn't post that stuff on social media, and so it feels out of bounds. I'd like to respect that. I do have a lot of blog posts about renovating though, if you're a first-time buyer needing inspiration in this regard. And if you're like, I have 0 property to renovate, the bottom line with this actually is make the most of what you've already got at your disposal. So I did a podcast episode called Be Happy with What You Have and Set Goals, and if those sound like 2 conflicting things, you should probably check that out. And if you're thinking, well, just because he's not building his own Versailles, if he's renovating his house, he's not happy with what he's got, so what are you on about? Well, for all we know, he might be updating a property for environmental reasons instead. So if you buy a very old house, you decide to insulate it for instance, you'll be warmer, but also the penguins will thank you. So there is sometimes a value to changing your environment that doesn't just benefit you. So you've diversified your income, you've invested in your future one way or another. If you invest in property, you made the most of that to save the cost of moving again, and also just so you could avoid climbing onto the property ladder of hedonic adaptation. Because trading in your house on a regular basis or having that in mind as a vision for your future, it's almost as poisonous as trading in your phone with every new iPhone release, even if you do have shares in Apple. It's the kind of behavior that teaches you to trade in everything in your life, including your relationships, until you look around one day, you realize you own a lot of shiz, but you're a one-man band who's hollow and empty on the inside like a Lindt chocolate bunny at Christmas, clinging onto its gold. To continue this idea of making the most of what we've already got, the big tip then on what Harry can teach us about personal finance. So some of you are going to leave me a comment disagreeing on this one, but I think it's very fitting. Can you guess what it is? Stop buying clothes, or stop buying so many clothes and buy more responsible clothes. The kind of clothes that are home by 10 p.m. and call you an hour before to let you know they're on the way home. That's not a thing. Perhaps someone should invent that. Responsible clothes that never walk too deep on the pavement. Does that annoy anyone else when people walk side by side down the street so you can't get past? Remember when we could walk side by side down the street together? Anyway, let's break this down because this is several tips in one. And also because if you're having snide thoughts right now about how a dude who wears a lot of high-end designer Gucci clothes can be a lesson in buying less clothes, are you having a giraffe? I need to take you through why Harry is actually the perfect exemplar for this. So first of all, if you can't choose a job with a uniform and get a tax rebate, did you know in the UK you can get a tax rebate if you wear a uniform to work? Did you know that? If you can't choose a job with a uniform and get a tax rebate, create your own uniform. So Harry could wear a million different things. He actually recycles a fair bit of his promotional outfits. And for his promo this time last year, he had a sort of minimalist work uniform of suspenders and pearls, the same shirt, sometimes in a different colour, or a second-hand t-shirt, the same cut of trousers, sometimes in a different colour, and either like the same rotation of jackets that he often wears, or a small rotation of shoes, including his beloved Vans trainers that he gets photographed in quite a bit. I suspect a 1950s vibe of muscle shirts is on the way, because the film he's making at the moment is meant to be set in the 1950s, and they've said things about the costume design that are giving me Great Gatsby vibes, so long as it's not Great Gatsby with none of the satire. Muscle shirts with pearls, why not? Kinsey would have a field day. That sounds like a different movie. I don't judge him for wearing designer clothes. I've talked before about why resenting the rich for wearing designer clothes is the equivalent of drinking poison and hoping the other person will die, when you're really just cutting your nose off to spite your own face, and a lot of other expressions. So there's a cost per use argument that you should pay more the more you wear something. In fact, Mr. Moneyjar, I'm pretty sure, has a good post about this on Instagram, so I'll try and link to that. Just follow him while you're there. He's also a king. Ramit Sethi has been talking about this for years. You could go all the way back to his podcast episode with Amy Porterfield all my years ago. I think it's episode 54, where he talks about, if that's your definition of value, then so be it, because there is a logic there. And also, I finally clicked why Gucci let Harry wear Lanvin and other designers. So I don't know what the benefits are of having your own record company, etc. Probably 0.01% of you are planning to set up a record company unless you tell me otherwise. When I'm ready to set one up, I'll research it properly. In the meantime, partly because I don't like to dig too deep, I couldn't work out his financial relationship with Gucci, because there's other labels he wears a lot of their stuff too, and he favors sustainable designer brands who use materials that were discarded, etc. And I was like, there's obviously not an exclusive arrangement going on, so when do you justify that? If you're a content creator or a small business, I think it's the same principle as related podcasts, related social profiles, or sharing which YouTube channels you subscribe to, which blogs you follow. It's about having no such thing as competition. So it signals to Lanvin customers that they should buy Gucci and vice versa. So if you normally go around life thinking that everything's a competition, I'd make friends with your so-called competition. Like, help the platforms you're on or your stakeholders know who your customer base is and your followers, like who should associate you with, and don't have it in mind that you have to have an exclusive relationship with anyone promoting your brand. And the other aspect of that is that comparison can also still be very helpful if your so-called competition is in a category above or below you. So my podcasting mic, I like it for the price, etc. But if I was to do a YouTube video to actually help others understand whether it's a useful mic or not, I might actually demonstrate a higher priced microphone in the same video so that you've got some relativity. Let me know if you want that. So that's a bit of a side hustle related tangent, but if we've met before, I think you're used to that from me by now. So how do you stop buying clothes? Apparently, you're supposed to go sustainable. So Gucci is the most sustainable fashion brand on the planet, apparently. I think they have an official designation for that. Who just spat out their tea? You're like, let me just go check my DMs. Oh, it's Gucci. They want to give me a load of clothes for free. So most of us aren't in that position. I live nearish a designer outlet. The queue for Gucci gets pretty hardcore. From what I've seen, it's almost as intense as the queue for the pit section when Harry is touring. So how do you get into slow fashion if a £600 pair of sustainable sneakers feels like it belongs more to a fast lane that you're not really in? So the outfits in Harry's latest video, I think, were nearly all made from recycled materials, and when he chooses to work with a new designer at a fashion school, it's usually a graduate who's trying to do something innovative with leftover fabrics that would have been discarded otherwise, that sort of thing. His tour merch is also sustainable. So print on demand is a thing that exists. If you haven't the means for Gucci and you can't find a level of sustainability you like on the high street, and you don't have the sewing skills of a fashion school graduate, you can make your own with the help of a sustainable print on demand company. You could insource your own poison. That's the Tim Ferriss rule again. Not the same metaphor as drinking poison and wishing that someone else feels the effects. More like learning to cut your own hair, or if you're Harry, just stop cutting it and grab an Alice band. No one will mind, will they, Twan? But these are still new items, right? So you still need a budget for those. But he also wears a lot of vintage and secondhand items. So lots of celebrities will only wear something once. Now maybe this guy has 100 hoodies from his record company, or maybe he only has one and he's the only celebrity on the planet who doesn't care if he wears something twice on his days off, because despite being the height of fashion when he's working, doesn't seem to care how casual he is when he's not, and he definitely wears some of the same clothes over and over again. Shocking, absolutely shocking. The world is on fire. But unusually, even the vintage items that are carefully chosen for his promo get reused too. I think it's the Harry Styles Fashion Archive on Instagram. I'll check it. They pointed out that a pair of sunglasses from a Rolling Stone photo shoot resurfaced in one of his music videos, and a jumpsuit from the same photo shoot he then wore on stage at the Jingle Bell Ball. The latter isn't vintage, I don't think. I think that was one of the pieces by a new designer where he's trying to give them a golden opportunity as they're falling out of design school, almost as if they were under the light of a canyon moon. This is partly about brand relationships again, but being given something that gets more than one outing to show how versatile it is. You can wear your glittery denim jumpsuit both at the O2 Arena and while strolling through a field on a summer's day. The sunglasses were vintage, I think. My definition of second-hand and Harry's might still have a bit of a price gap. But let's do some time traveling, because I think I alluded to this a few months ago in episode 6 of the podcast. Let's see what I said, and also let's investigate how different the sound quality was, if at all. So if you go to a charity shop in an affluent area, you'll find, in theory, designer clothes with the tags still on. Will they be better quality, or will they just look more tailored? So one final thing I'd add is to think about that exactly. Most of the people wearing designer clothes can also afford a tailor, and in my opinion, 90% of what makes an outfit look expensive is just down to how well it fits. So if that's the trouble in your existing wardrobe, instead of chucking it all out or donating it and then going shopping again, would a nip and a tuck here and there breathe new life without the need for fast fashion? You'll probably spend less on average overall. Plus, you could be helping someone with a small tailoring business. Who knew that hiring a seamstress was a way to save, eh? Hi savers, it's me again, Bear from the future. Present, but you're consuming this in the future after I recorded it, which is now the present. Let's resume anyway. Also, anything he wears probably becomes a lot more valuable afterwards. So I get that there are caveats with all of this. This isn't about trying to swap a house deposit for a pair of Gucci sunglasses from the 1950s, obviously. But don't be afraid of pre-loved clothing, as it's better for the planet, it can be easier on the wallet, and if it's good enough for Hazza, it's probably good enough for you. Or just keep wearing that hoodie from your record company as if laundry day is every day, and stop caring whether anyone will notice. In fact, if you're not a celebrity, probably no one will notice. The majority of people are worrying too much about themselves to worry about whether you got dressed in the dark. So I had shopping addictions in the past, by the way, and one of them was clothes. And the thing that stopped me wasn't the environment, because there wasn't that consciousness at that point. What stopped me was that I was suffocating mentally. So take a look around and see if you own your stuff or if your stuff owns you. Remember, Christmas present amnesties are a real thing. You just have to make them real by being open with the people around you and telling them what's really important to you. And if you secretly buy yourself a vinyl, no one's going to know, but where will you put it? And the final line, not the fine line, but the final line, if all else fails, buy a watermelon farm and write a song about watermelons.